Earlier, I mentioned how the launch and early Jaguar games did not impress me, but I ended up getting one eventually anyways. The reason for this is quite simple. Alien versus Predator. For most of my life, I've really loved Geiger's xenomorphs. I love the look of the creature itself, the world they inhabit, the films they originate in, the novels and comics featuring them, and of course, the video games that had those lovable monsters in featured roles. At the time, I used to play with the Kenner alien toys and stage massive wars, which the aliens always won, of course, as I liked them a lot better than the Marines. Needless to say, the early previews in Game Informer showed something that appealed immensely to me. In the upcoming Alien vs. Predator game, you could play as an alien. Not only that, you could also play as the Predator. And as a small bonus, you could also play as a human. Or as the ads put it, play as lunch. After working myself into a frenzy with these ads, I knew I had to have a Jaguar. It's the only time I've ever bought a system for a single game, making Alien vs. Predator for the Jaguar the very definition of a system seller for me. And the game does not disappoint. Basically, it is a first-person shooter using a raycasting engine, a la Doom, or in this case more like Wolfenstein 3D, as it uses only squares for geography. However, Alien vs. Predator differs in numerous ways from the Doom and Wolf 3D mold, to the point it is quite unfair to call it a Doom clone at all. What is different? Well, most obviously, the three different playable characters. All three campaigns are very different. Each type has differing weapons, starting locations, and goals. The Marine is trying to activate the self-destruct on the space station the game takes place in, and then get away in an escape pod. The Alien is trying to free the Queen from a captivity inside the Predator ship, which is docked at this same space station. And the Predator is trying to kill a different Queen inside of another ship docked at the space station. Each character has differing controls. The Marine and Predator use the same action buttons. C is strafe lock, allowing you to sidestep while holding it. B fires your current weapon, and A is the use and open doors button. The number pad selects weapons, and for the Predator, changes vision mode and activates your healing device. Additionally, the option button enables and disables your cloaking field. The Alien controls differently. C is tail strike, B is bite, and A is claw, which also opens doors. There's no strafe lock for the Alien, though a lack of ranged weapons means this actually doesn't matter much. One notable quirk, looking at the overlays, of which there's one per character, you can see that there are independent strafe buttons. But it's completely impossible to use them for this in any comfortable way while still being able to hit the action buttons and D-pad. It's just pointless, and further evidence of how bad of an idea having a phone pad is on a console controller. Beyond the differing characters and goals, the most prominent trait in Alien vs. Predator is the atmosphere. This game can scare you, which is very impressive for an old 2D game. For maximum effect, play in a quiet room as the Marine. Earlier, I commented negatively on Cybermorph's lack of in-game music. Alien vs. Predator uses this as an asset. Instead of music, you constantly hear humming and droning sounds and quiet noises from the space station. It's almost soothing, and then suddenly there's as an alien slices your back. That's right, the only noises the aliens make is when they either attack you or are injured. They're very stealthy, and it makes for a scary game. Going further with the sound design, when a Predator is in the area, you'll hear brief comments in English and their distorted voices, only to have them suddenly appear in front of you, decloaked. The sound design of the game is simply marvelous, especially for a game released in 1994. The game sounds like a horror game, which reminds me of another genre, survival horror. In some ways, that is what the Marine Quest is. Rather than a shoot-'em-up, you have to conserve ammo and health, while trying to progress and upgrade your weapons and find keys. Sound familiar? The Predator plays much different. The Pred can cloak and then decloak at will. Quite quickly, you can upgrade your weapons automatically. Best of all, he can carry extra health and use it at will. Basically, the Predator plays a mix of a shooting game and exploration game. His quest is also by far the easiest. The Alien plays much different. To start, he has no ranged weapons and low health. What he does have is a very high run speed and the ability to reproduce. That's right, you can cocoon Marines, then a baby alien grows. When you die, you hatch out of the Marine, and life begins anew. In this sense, if you're patient, you never have to worry about seeing a game over screen as the Alien. This makes the real challenge navigation, which is a bitch, and my biggest complaint about the game. Alien vs. Predator is a huge open-ended game. You have an auto map, but it's a pretty useless one. While I did beat the game as a Predator, who simply navigates around and travels via elevator, I never could beat as the Alien for one simple reason. The Alien can't use elevators and must progress through ventilation ducts, which are very maze-like and very difficult to follow. I dislike mazes in games on the whole, and I'm no cartographer. I eventually gave up until Game Informer provided my salvation in the form of maps in a later issue. Just look at how much of a maze this game really is. This is one game that badly needed a better automap. Earlier, I said I don't like having to look off-screen to progress in games, and that statement stands, but it's a virtual requirement for me in this game when playing as the alien, as I get lost very easily. Luckily, the charm of running around chowing down on predators and humans as the alien is so satisfying that it makes up for this problem. And when you finally rescue the queen, it's a great feeling. Alien vs. Predator is fun, quite long when you consider the 3 campaigns, and in some ways groundbreaking for its time. As a Jaguar exclusive title, it was held up as the killer app on the system, and deservedly so. For me, it was a system seller, and today it is a system keeper. I won't ever sell my Jag, as I want to be able to go back and play this game at will. I just reviewed every regular Jaguar game I own. 2 very good ones, a decent one, and 2 that I don't like very much. Looking beyond my meager library, the Jaguar has about 50 total titles released in its original lifespan, which ended around 1997. When you consider this, I think its library is actually fairly decent. Other very good titles released on the Jaguar I haven't mentioned include Cannon Fodder, Doom, Tempest 2000, Missile Command 3D, Power Drive Rally, Super Burnout, and Wolfenstein 3D. A number of these are ports, but frequently the Jaguar version is the best, or at least better than the 16-bit versions. Power Drive Rally, Super Burnout, and Missile Command 3D are exclusives, and Tempest 2000, considered a genre classic, was an exclusive for most of the Jaguar's life. Beyond these best titles, there are also a number of other games well worth playing. A few include Theme Park, Pinball Fantasies, Defender 2000, and Breakout 2000. The last 2 are Jag exclusive. In sum total, I'd say nearly half the Jag library is worth playing, at least briefly, and there are a considerable number of exclusive releases, especially considering how troubled the Jaguar was from an early date. It never did manage much third-party support. More than half the titles were made by Atari or related companies. For much of its life, it was on the brink of death. I bitched about the controller earlier, but on the whole, most games treat it much like a 3-button Genesis controller, and used this way it really does work fine. Far better than the 5200 controller, at the very least. Taking into consideration its small library and brief lifespan, I believe the Jaguar is actually a fairly solid console. I'd rank it above the 7800 and 5200, but below the 2600. Obviously, it isn't my favorite, and you really cannot put it in league with the Super Nintendo or other more popular consoles, but I'll always have a little soft spot in my heart for the little cat that tried, but just couldn't ever quite make the big time.